morning, everyone. My name is Brandon R. Mattingly. I am the Strategic Growth Manager for First American Title. And personally, obviously, I'm speaking on behalf of Monica Smith, but we represent the Mattingly team, which is obviously my namesake, and then I represent the DFW Metroplex as a whole. I got you right there. All right, there we go. So basically I can do one of two things today, and I'm leaning toward the latter. I can give you the very straightforward, boring kind of First American overall. Here's the revenues for last year. Here's our stock price. Here are the things that we're proud of from a cultural standpoint. And then I can watch half of you go to sleep, right? Which is not the ideal intent here. Or we can kind of talk about the market, my vision for title and real estate in DFW, and kind of how I landed here. Is the second one acceptable?
Yes, please.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. Okay, so my role is Strategic Growth Manager. So I'm in charge of the entire DFW Metroplex, and I have a counterpart down in Austin who does the same thing, and the two of us represent North Texas, okay? I personally have been in title since the 1900s, and I know how that sounds when I say that, right? But that actually is the truth. My father ran a title company in the Midwest, Kentucky, Indiana, all over, and I started his company when I was 7. So factually speaking, I've been in title since 1992. In 1999, at 14, he named me the vice president of his company, upsetting a great number of people, as I'm sure you can imagine. So nonetheless, I have legitimately been in the industry since the 1900s. So why am I First American Title now? I've been given this opportunity because I have a vision, right? Title in the Metroplex has become a bit of a quid pro quo endeavor, right? If you help me, we'll take care of you, and that'll sort of be the end of it. There's very infrequently a title company that has a vision to be able to improve their partner's business reputation, their business results, and their lives, right? That's where I come in. So what I'm creating at First American Title is an ecosystem, okay? The big problem everybody has when they look at major companies like First American Title, First American Financial, these large macro entities, is that nobody likes gigantic companies. Is that fair to say? We all have a natural propensity to not want to work with larger companies. However, how many people in here are wearing Apple Watches today? How many people have a tablet? Right? The iPhone. How many people connect all of those together, right? I would wager it's at least 50 to 60% of the room, right? So not so much on the major corporations. We just pick and choose. And that's the goal here at First American Title. I'm creating an ecosystem. I'm just flat copying the Steve Jobs ecosystem, and if he were alive, I would give him the props, right? I'm just taking it. First American Title is creating an ecosystem. Here's how this works. In 2025, it's the access to information that matters. Everybody is a marketer these days. With Canva and things of that nature, it is not extremely difficult to create a basic marketing profile for your real estate career. Very simple stuff. However, the access to information is much more difficult. In the 2024 NAR Buyers and Sellers Generational Trends Report, which is basically the National Association of Realtors breaking down statistics on who buys homes, who sells homes, things of this nature, 86% of homeowners, whether they sold or bought in 2024, identified their real estate agent as their sole source of information. They did not get info from anybody else. 86%. That means that if you're a real estate agent, commercial, residential, if you're a lender, if you're moving anywhere in the real estate space, you are likely to be the only stop for information. My team and my vision is to make sure that you have more information than anybody else. How do we do that? So we do that a couple of ways. One is I've created this idea called support packages, right? So what I want you to be able to do is know the most about the property. If you're taking a buyer, I want you to know before you arrive what you're walking into. If you're going to a listing presentation, I want you to know before you walk in the advantages to the home and the details that will make you more successful in your presentation. If you have a listing that you're trying to sell, we want to give you access to information that will help highlight that property more. In other title companies, to access this information, they have to do what's known as opening title. And if you're in real estate, that term will make sense to you. Opening title means that a title company has to pay somebody in-house, an examiner, a searcher, something like that, to open title. It affects the P&L long term. Does that make sense?
Yep.
This is different. We do not have to open title. Therefore, it does not affect the P&L ever. It is a service that only my company can provide because I built it from scratch. And how did I do that? I did that by connecting the dots from title examination, which is where I spent the majority of my life, to the forward-facing piece of real estate, which is people like Ken Dries and Tyler Pryor, right? When you connect the dots, what I'm able to do is provide a substantial amount of information about any property, any transaction, vacant land, commercial, data farm, single family, multifamily syndication. Regardless of what it is, I'm able to plug you into the ecosystem that will give you the most information and the maximum efficiency for your process. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Any questions about that before we talk about the market a little bit? How am I doing on time? Well, I have questions.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
So is that via an app, or is that like reach out to your office and then you provide that information? How does that engagement look?
It's a great question. So at the moment, you're going to have to reach out to me or my team directly, and we will provide a support package for you inside of 48 hours. The ideal vision for this, and it's a really good question, is one day I will be able to simply provide you with a QR code. By the end of the year, I should be able to provide you with a hyperlink that will take care of the entire package. The QR code is more challenging because First American Financial is a national organization. And if you didn't know, 4 years ago, First American was subject to an aggressive attack. Essentially, First American as a whole had to shut down for 48 hours because an IT person in Michigan clicked a phishing link. It really was just that simple. And for 48 hours, First American was down. So because of that, they are very, very hesitant to allow me to create QR codes. Because if you didn't know, QR codes are easily manipulated. And so it's taken me some time to work through that. So for the time being, the method is you request it from me personally or somebody in my team via text, email, phone call, whatever the method may be, and we will return a physical package to you within 48 hours. By the end of the year, I do expect to have it electronic. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Great question. Any other questions about this process and kind of the ecosystem of First American before we chat on the market?
So what makes you different from pulling information for yourself from like Zillow or Realtor.com?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Zillow and Realtor.com, you're just talking about property characteristics, right? You're not talking about the history of the property. And I'll give you some examples, right? Zillow.com is not going to tell you who owned the property prior, right? Or where the vesting deed is. Zillow.com will not tell you if there are tax liens on the property. How about if there's a maintenance lien because they haven't cut the grass, right? Zillow.com will not tell you a homestead designation, right? Maybe they've got unique exemptions. Zillow's not going to tell you that, right? Maybe the property taxes have jumped for a variety of reasons. Not going to get that at Zillow, right? Understand the difference, and that's a great question. Zillow and Realtor.com are providing a very surface level view of real estate information, right? My team in the ecosystem are providing a complete view of real estate information. Does that make sense? It's a great question. Any others before we chat on the market? And thank you for the questions. I appreciate it very much. How are we doing on time? 3 minutes. Okay, let's talk about the market a little bit. This is my favorite thing to talk about, and as you come to get to know me, I am absolutely qualified as an economics nerd. It's my favorite thing to do. So, anybody know what's happening outside of real estate people in like 3 weeks with the Fed?
Next interest rate.
My guy, I like him. Do we think they're going to cut?
Yes.
How many basis points?
25.
My guy. So the expectation in 2 to 3 weeks is that the Fed will cut 25 basis points, right? What I would want everybody to know about that cut. A lot of people are going to see that cut, and then you're going to see them respond in the following way. Hey, they cut 25 basis points today. Mortgage rates are about to drop. And I just want you to know that's factually not how that works. The market has already anticipated the 25 basis point cut, and it will have been factored in by the time Powell makes the announcement on September 17th. Now, the caveat to that is, what if he cuts at 50 basis points, right? And I had a friend text me after he finished the Jackson Hole Symposium, laughingly, he said, if I was there, I would have raised my hand and just said, cut at 50, coward, right? And that's sort of the approach right now. If he cuts at 50 basis points, what you need to understand is every 25 basis point cut unlocks 1 million buyers. If he cuts at 50 basis points, that will not only affect the anticipation of the cut, it'll affect rates after the cut. A 25 basis point cut leaves us right where we are. A 50 basis point cut changes the game a little bit. Now let's talk about projections on rates as a whole. Everybody that I have listened to and everybody that I've spoken to and read are projecting the bottom of this thing to be 6.2, 6.1, maybe by Q2 next year. And that is a very, very generous projection, right? Based on the CPI and the PPI and the CPE and where we are with those factors, I just want to tell you, I think this is the new normal. So to Kim's point earlier, if you are a buyer, if you're a home buyer or a home seller waiting for the market to change in some capacity, I would highly encourage you to understand that this is essentially where we are, and I anticipate this is where we'll be long term. So just kind of a black and white on the market as a whole. Any questions on any of that? Because I think I'm about out of time. Fantastic, I nailed that time. Any questions? Awesome, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.